In this video, I am going to go over genetics and DNA fingerprinting. I will be going through this chapter using an example based on the series Outer Banks. Sheriff Peterkin was the victim of this murder. She was killed after solving a previous murder case and learning too much about the crime. After analyzing the crime scene, 4 suspects were found. John B. is a troublesome teenager who many townspeople said was guilty for the sheriff's murder. Ward was at the scene, being arrested by the sheriff for the previous case she had solved. Rafe was also at the scene and was using drugs at the time. Sarah was there trying to clear John B.'s name. 2 DNA samples were collected at the crime scene and were amplified to show 2 different VNTR loci. The samples were ran through gel electrophoresis to create fingerprints. Now we are going to compare these samples to the DNA of both the victim and the suspects to find out what happened at the scene. Looking at the first sample at loci 1, we can see both the victim and Ward match the DNA. We can cross out everyone else's name. Even though they may match the sample partially, they are still excluded because you have to have an exact match in order to match the DNA. Looking at the second locus, we see that the victim and Sarah have DNA matching the sample. Now we know the DNA in sample 1 comes from the victim, Sheriff Peterkin, because she's the only person who matched at both loci. Now let's take a look at sample 2. At loci 1, sample 2 matches both John B. and Rafe. As before, we can cross out everyone else as they don't match exactly. At loci 2, the DNA sample only matches Rafe. This DNA comparison shows that Rafe matches both and was guilty for committing the murder of Sheriff Peterkin. While looking at these samples, we can also see an example of parentage. When looking at DNA, biological parents each give their child one allele. Looking at these DNA samples, Ward and Sarah always have one band in the same spot. This shows Ward is Sarah's biological father, as seen in the movie.